we are looking at the creation and the fall of humankind. Today we are looking at the creation and the fall of humankind. We shall start by defining what is creation, and we shall also look at the humankind. The first thing we look at the creation, it refers to how God created the universe and everything that is in it. That is our basic knowledge, that creation is how God created the universe, how he made the universe, and everything that is in it. So one, God created the universe and everything that is in it. The creation that God did, he created without using a substance except the human beings. So all other things that exist in the universe, including the universe itself, it was created without something. But human beings were created using a substance. So creation is how God made the universe and everything that is in it, except the human beings, where he used a substance. There are two accounts of creation in the Bible. We have two accounts of creation in the Bible. We have the first account and the second account. In this section, we are going to look at the biblical stories of creation, both in the first account and in the second account. The first account, we are getting it from Genesis chapter 1. And the second account, we are going to get it from the Genesis chapter 2. And if you can look at the illustration, the table that I've prepared here, it is an illustration of the creation account. First account of creation. I have divided it into three columns. The first column indicates the day in which creation was done. The second column shows the type of work that was done and the division of work in the third column. So we are going to start by saying that in the first day, so we have the first day here and the first work. We are going to look at the first work in the first day. In the first day, work 1, God created light and darkness. God created light and darkness. Light and darkness. I want us to go together that in the first day, the work 1 that God did was creation of light and darkness. We are going to read that one from Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 to 3. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And that is what we did as we were defining that creation refers to how God made the universe and everything that is in it. So it is saying in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void. So that means it didn't have any definite shape. It was void and without form. And darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was moving over the face of the waters. Verse 3, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. So that is very important, that in the first day, the first work that God did was to create the light. So he separated the light from the day. He called the light day, and the darkness night. And that was the first day, work 1. In the second day, in our second day, work 2, there was work 2. And God created the sky. God created the sky. So we are going to get that one also from our references. That is the second day. And God said, let there be firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament and separated the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and there was evening and there was morning, a second day. So we are saying that the second day, second work. Remember, in the first day there was the first work. So in the second day there is the second work. God created the sky, and this sky is the one that we are referring to it as a firmament. The firmament, of course, the firmament, now we have this space in between the earth that we are having and not only the sky. So that space, it is the firmament that God created on the second day. On the third day, now this one is the third work. There was the third work in the third day. God created the land and the sea. Are we together, class? God created the land and the sea. So God created the land and the sea. All of us know, and we can identify ourselves with the sea. For example, the Indian Ocean, can identify ourselves with the land. So we have the land that we are inhabiting, where we construct our houses and we do our businesses daily, and we walk on land. That is the third day, work 3, and work 4. On the same third day, there was work 4. We still have the work 4. And in that work 4, God created vegetation. He created vegetation. God created vegetation. That is the third day. We have the work 3 and the work 4. On the fourth day, we get here, on the fourth day, now we have work 5. I hope you are following. We have work 1, work 2, work 3, work 4, and work 5. Now, on the fourth day, God created the sun, moon, and stars. We have the sun, moon, and the stars. Those are the heavenly bodies. God created the sun, the moon, and the stars on the fourth day. The fifth day, we have work 6. We have work 6 on the fifth day, where God created birds and the sea creatures. God created the birds. We have the birds and sea creatures. Sea creatures, all of them, the sea creatures that we know, both the cattle on both the fish and many other sea creatures. On the 6th day, we are going on the 6th day. On the 6th day, we have work 7. We have work 7, and God created birds, and God created the animals. God created the animals. Animals, we have the animals. God created the animals. And those animals, we can identify them. For example, the cattle, can be, give examples of them. The cattle the creeping animals, and so forth and so forth. And also on the 6th day, we still have the work 8. We still have work 8, where God created human beings. God created human beings. Human beings. We have the human beings. God created the human beings, both male and female. We have both male and female on the 6th day. And on the 7th day, the last one, the 7th day, there was no work. Instead, God rested. This was the Sabbath day. This was the Sabbath day. God rested. God rested on the Sabbath day. That is the 7th day. So that is our first account of creation. We are going to look at the second account of creation very briefly. The second account of creation briefly. The second account of creation . So just as I had said, we have two accounts of creation. The first account of creation and the second account of creation. So in the first account of creation, we have seen how God created on the first day up to the 7th day in Genesis chapter 1. Now we go to Genesis chapter 2, where we look at the second account of creation. And we begin by saying the second account of creation, or the second account, is human-centered. It is human-centered. This one is human-centered. It is human-centered because everything that God does is to fulfill the needs of human beings. Everything that God creates is centered towards, directed towards meeting the needs of human beings. So it is human-centered. Man is created from dust. Man is created from dust. Man is created from dust. So God took the dust and formed a human being, and then he breathed his breath into the nostrils of a human being, and he became alive. So God breathed life into man, and he created that man using dust. And this is where now we see God using a substance to create. Unlike in the first account, where we just see God saying, "Let there be," and there was. God planted a garden in the Eden. Here we are also seeing God planted a garden in Eden. God planted a garden in Eden, in the east, and placed man in it. So there is also a very interesting class where we see God creating a human being, and then he creates a garden in the Eden, and he placed this man in it, in that garden. This is very interesting. Unlike in the first account, where we don't see this garden that is created. God placed a tree of knowledge of good and evil and commanded man not to eat it. So God placed a tree of knowledge. God placed a tree of knowledge. A tree of knowledge. We have the tree of knowledge, that God is placing in the garden, and is giving instructions to man that don't eat that tree that is in the middle of the garden. And this tree is of knowledge. That means if you eat of it, you will know the good and the evil. But God is instructing them not to eat of it. So God gave man the free will of choice. We are looking at God here giving man free will of choice. Yes, a free will of choice. And this one, we are not seeing it in the first account of creation. So this is where man is given the free will to choose whether to eat or not. That is our first knowledge that we are getting from this second account of creation. There were consequences of eating from the tree of knowledge. There were consequences. There were consequences. There were consequences. That means if man could decide to eat from this tree of knowledge, then there was going to be a consequence. A consequence is the outcome of an action. And remember, we said that God instructed this man, don't eat of the tree of knowledge of evil and good in the middle of the garden. And the consequence is if you eat, you will die. There will be death. The consequence was death. Yes, class, all of us know that there is death. People die because of different reasons. But here, we are seeing that the main reason why one could die is because of eating the fruit of knowledge. God then made man a helper for him. God made a helper. God made a helper for him. God made a helper for him. That is Eve. God created man, that's Adam, and he also made a helper for him. That is Eve. And God removed the ribs of a man and made a woman who was to be a helper, a companion. Was to be a helper or companion. We have companion. Companion here. Companion. That one is very interesting. Those are the creation accounts. The creation accounts. The creation accounts. The first one and the second one. I want us to look at briefly similarities and differences. The similarities and differences. We have similarities and differences. Similarities and differences in the first account and the second account. What differences are there? You can even identify them from our explanation of the first account and the second account. Now we shall start with the similarities. What are the similarities between the first account and the second account? We start with the similarities. The first similarity, how similar are they? In both, God is acknowledged as the creator. So, similarities. Similarities. And the first one, God is the creator. In both the first account and the second account, we see God as being the creator of